And we're live. We're live to a Tuesday edition of the Let's Talk Fishing video podcast. My name is James. I'm going to be your host for this evening. The, the Let's Talk Fishing podcast is brought to you by Grant Rods, Crusher Lures, and the American Bass Club. With me tonight, I have a man who lives in the same little community I live in down here in southern Louisiana, a man who likes to fish out of a kayak, and he likes to fish the marsh, which, boy, I tell you, this time of the year, I love being on the marsh. Anyways, I have none other than Josh Lewis. How are you doing tonight, Josh?
I'm good, man. How are you?
I'm doing very good. Boy, I tell you, I can't wait to get down to the marsh next week.
Oh yeah, it's a really good time to be down there.
Yeah, I can't. Geez, yeah, I haven't been fishing the marsh my whole life, just like we just discussed. I think I was 45 years old the first time I stepped foot on one.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you, the first time I hooked into a redfish, I was absolutely addicted.
Oh, I bet. It's all it takes is that first hit by red and you are hooked.
And, I love bass fishing. So I was down there, guy said, just how do we catch these things? It's got to be complicated. And he said, well, do you fish for bass? I've been fishing for bass since I was 4 years old. And I said, yeah, I've caught a few bass in my life.
Yeah.
Well, he said, then you can catch redfish. You mean this isn't going to be complicated? I don't have to learn it. It's not like fly fishing or anything,
No.
He said, well, you can fly fish for them, but, I prefer not to. I said, well, so do I. I prefer not to. So you have an exciting announcement. Why don't you tell us about that?
Yeah. So I've been in the process of starting a podcast. It is called Marsh Talk.
Marsh Talk.
Yep. It's a podcast. I'll be interviewing people, kind of like me and you here.
Sure.
Just having general discussion. It'll be about fishing, lifestyle of the industry and fishing and outdoors, and then also a lot of talk about conservation. It's a subject I think that needs to be talked about, especially here in Louisiana. And I think there's a lot of bad information out there, and there's a lot of good information that needs to get out there and be shared. And I really am looking forward to having this platform to share that.
Just a little aside about conservation. Back in the 70s, there was a guy named Al Linder. Him and his brother Ron Linder started a magazine called The In-Fisherman. The In-Fisherman also had a TV series that came with it, and they started a whole new concept called catch, photo, release.
Yeah.
And I mean, it caught on up north. It just caught on. People stopped eating bass. Not down here, of course, but up there, I mean, when I grew up, my dad and his friends would tell me that if you ate a bass, you'd never catch another bass. Being a little kid and thinking about nothing but fishing. I wanted to catch other bass. So.
Right. Yeah. I do got to say the bass community does a very good job for the most part of taking care of the estuaries and lakes and ponds and taking care of the fish themselves. Something that really hasn't bled over too much into the inshore world yet, but it's starting to take place.
Well, I can't tell you. I've released dozens of redfish and hundreds of speckled trout, but that's just because I take what I'm going to eat and I don't store fish.
Yeah, that's a big thing of it. Like I don't want people to think I have a problem with keeping fish, because that's not the case at all. I love to eat fish as much as anybody, but yeah, you
Sure.
Go out, catch what you need and release the rest, especially the big girls. Release the big girls.
I like to bring home a redfish to put on the grill, and usually I only bring home one.
Yeah.
You can, but these aren't crappie or sockeye like people call them around here. These are, I like to bring home about a 22 incher.
Yep. That's a perfect size.
Somewhere around in there. So marsh talk. You're going to be talking. Is it only going to be marsh talk?
So, I mean, I'm not going to be interviewing strictly people on the subject of inshore fishing. There's going to be some bass talk in there. maybe a little bit of lure and tackle industry people. Just nothing something particular. Like, I don't want it to just be about redfish and speckled trout. I want to touch on other subjects as well.
There you go. Yeah, the Bass and Magazine podcast that I do is only about bass, but
Yeah.
that world is so huge.
Oh, it really is.
But that's why I like this podcast, because I can talk people like I can talk to red fishermen, crappie fishermen, even some salmon fishermen.
Yeah.
I've even interviewed people from Alaska about their outfitters that up there that take people out and float trip down the rivers, and I've done that.
That's an experience.
I have done that. I lived up in Alaska for a couple of years, and I just couldn't make it work for any longer.
Yeah. I couldn't bear that cold.
Well, it did get, it's just the opposite of Louisiana.
Right.
Growing up in Illinois, I started fishing, and I never stopped fishing. I fished 12 months out of the year, except when I was hunting.
Yeah.
But about June, when there was still snow in the front yard, I started getting depressed. When can I fish? And guys, just the end of this month. I had a temper tantrum. I don't want to wait.
Yeah. Yep.
Is there no fish in this accursed state?
Pick up ice fishing.
Yeah, if you want to drill through 5 feet of ice, that's then sit there at 50 degrees below zero. My goodness.
No, I'm out on that.
Like fishing in 118 degrees around here,
Yeah.
And I don't fish in the middle of summer around here either. It's just it's too much for me.
Yeah.
A big old guy from the north, no. It just doesn't work. So you're going to be interviewing people from all aspects of the fishing industry. That's interesting. I like that.
Yep. I have a few people lined up already that I'm real excited to record with, and I think there's going to be some good episodes that people are really going to enjoy.
That's awesome, man. So you're a kayak fisherman.
I am.
Are you exclusively a kayak fisherman, or are you?
I don't want to say exclusively. Like, I'm not against getting in a boat. I got family and friends with boats, and I'll go fishing with them. But when I am in a boat, I feel like I would just rather be in my kayak. It's just a whole different experience. I feel more one out there with nature. I'm that much more stealthy. A thing I really enjoy doing is sight fishing redfish.
Sure.
And I can get some really skinny water, some backwater ponds in the marsh, and sight fish reds in a kayak without spooking them.
I have sight fished in a flats boat out of Point of Shane. That was a lot of fun.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I've only done it a couple of times, maybe 3 or 4 times. A guy pulling for me, and he was up on a great big tower, and
yeah,
he said, "Come on up here." I can't get up in a tower. Just you don't want a big guy up in a tower. This boat's awfully tippy to begin with, without me 10 feet up the ground.
Yeah, I fished with a friend in his gator tail. He has a tower that he puts on his gator tail, and we went fishing down in Terrebonne Parish, and man, that was a whole different experience of sight fishing there.
That's where that's where Point of Shane is.
Yeah, Point of Shane is in Terrebonne.
Yeah, I fished a lot of places there. I'm sure you have too.
Oh yeah, Terrebonne was where I spent most of my time this year. Well, last
year. Where do you go?
All over. I don't think there's a bad spot down in Terrebonne.
Really? Okay. So I fished out of Dularge.
Mm-hmm. Yep, Dularge is great. Dulac is great.
Yeah, Dulac. I fished out of there. Point of Shane. All around home. I mean, sometimes Lake Decad. This time of the year, Lake Decad seems to be a good place to be.
I haven't been there.
It's not very far away from Dularge. You can launch out of Homa and go there.
Yeah.
You can launch out of Bob's Bayou Black and get there.
Yeah, Bayou Black's a popular spot.
I've fished a couple of small tournaments out of Bob's Bayou Black.
Okay.
Bass tournaments, though.
Yeah. Yeah.
Boy, and I'll tell you, guys, if you've never fished the marsh for largemouth bass, these fish, a 14-inch long bass is going to weigh 2.5 pounds, and it's going to be green and mean.
Oh yeah.
Those fish, if you go to my Facebook account and you can see, I have a picture of a marsh bass in there, and it's crazy. They're like bright green.
Yeah. I would definitely say they fight more aggressively than a fish out of like a pond or lake.
And I can't believe that because it's like cold water bass are very aggressive and very mean.
Mm-hmm.
But these the marsh never really gets that cold.
Yeah, not as cold as most of your lakes are going to get.
Yeah, marsh will get. I mean, like right now, but it's probably in the 50s, high 50s.
Yeah, that's what I've been noticing.
So redfish, man, I love talking. What is your favorite presentation for redfish? I know you
My
probably have 60 of them, but
so like I told you a while ago, my favorite thing to do is the sight fish reds, and most of the time I'm throwing a soft plastic crawl that's just rigged up weedless, and that's my primary go-to. Just pitching it to them as I see them, and sometimes I'll switch to a top water.
you mean something like this?
Just like that. White's my color though when sight fishing, but just like that.
White.
Yep.
So you're throwing a white craw.
A white crawl. And if I want to switch up to something else, I'm using a top water spook, like a skitterwalk.
Do you have any do you use any weight on that at all?
Normally not when I'm sight fishing, just because how shallow the water is. I don't need any weight.
So are you casting that with a bait caster?
Yep, bait caster.
Wow, I want to talk about this. So you can cast something like this. How big of a hook are you using?
About a 4/0.
Damn, that's a big hook.
Yeah, well, I like a big hook on them reds.
How long is this? How long? What action with your rod?
It depends. I mean, a lot of times I'm using just a pretty average rod, like a 7-foot medium heavy. That seems to get the job done.
So you can cast something like that accurately with no weight,
Mm-hmm.
just a 4/0 hook, and you can cast that accurately in the heat of battle. I mean, if you see a red, your blood pressure's already climbed a little bit. And
yeah, you normally get pretty excited. I like to imagine about like seeing a deer.
Are you standing when you cast
Oh,
like this?
most of the time, yeah, I'm standing.
And how far are you casting?
It's honestly normally not super far. 25, 30 feet at the most.
Okay, 25, 30 feet. Okay.
Yeah, it's normally not very far.
Bass fisherman casting, man, where you're casting 20, 30 yards on an average cast.
Yeah. Normally when I'm sight fishing, I'm not having to cast that far.
But guys, those of you who have never tried to do this, casting a bait caster with no weight, and particularly like Josh is talking about casting a medium heavy 7-foot, and I'm sure you're not using 4-pound test line either.
No, I'm using 40-pound braid.
See, okay, well, braid's a little bit easier to cast, I think.
Yeah.
But that's not easy. So you're not using a popping cork, obviously.
No, I despise throwing a popping cork.
Man, but throwing something like this, it'd be a lot easier to be stealthy because when this lands, it's not going to make much of a disturbance.
Right. That's
probably,
part of it.
Like an average shrimp hitting the top of it.
Exactly. Normally just enough to get their attention.
Yeah, they turn around. Hey, what was that?
Yeah.
Hey, what was that? Oh, look at that.
And redfish aren't the smartest fish out there. They're very curious. They'll eat just about anything. Color, in my opinion, normally doesn't matter when I'm sight fishing. I prefer white. I normally prefer white, but I could throw a black and blue, a purple, a pink one, and I feel like I'd have the same success.
When you were talking about something like a skitter pop,
A skitter walk. Yeah.
Oh, a skid or walk. Okay, so you're using a walk in the dog kind of thing.
Yeah.
Like it. Um, well, I'll tell you, it's interesting. The first time I saw it, I could not believe it. The way a redfish takes a topwater lure. It I swear I saw that fish come up, turn over, and grab it. Am I crazy?
I've seen them do some crazy things in some baits, and that's a cool thing about sight fishing, like I normally do in that really shallow water. It's normally fairly clear. I'm trying to get around some grass, so that's going to clear the water up a lot.
Sure,
And
sure.
you can see some crazy ways these redfish come up and attack a bait
Because their mouths on the bottom of their body.
Mm-hmm.
So I swear, I had other fishermen tell me that they've seen a redfish do that. That I looked at that and I'm glad I had on sharp hooks because I was just mesmerized. I couldn't even set. Did you see? My buddy, you want to set that hook, please? And this fish impaled himself on that thing.
Yeah.
Impaled himself. Something I've been wanting to catch a redfish on for a long time.
Jerk bait?
Something like
Absolutely.
this. Yeah. This is a dual realis jerk bait. I think dual realis makes the absolute best stuff.
So speaking of jerk bait, so I'm on the Bill Lewis team. And
Oh,
Bill Lewis,
awesome, dude.
they're getting ready to release the scope stick, their jerk bait. And that thing is money. I love it.
That's awesome, Josh. Jeez. Bill Lewis lures.
Yep.
For those of you guys who don't know, Bill Lewis is the original rattle trap. When I first joined the Air Force, I was stationed on the shores of Lake St. Clair, I had no idea I had no clue. Lake St. Clair is like best smallmouth bass area. One of the better ones in the world.
Yeah.
And so I had 2 rattle traps and an old ugly stick with like really old blue Kmart line. And I went out there with my 2 rattle traps and a couple of jigs and
went after
a
it.
dozen night crawlers. And I threw that rattle trap and I started catching. It was in spring. I started catching smallmouth bass and I got the rattle trap stuck on something on the bottom and I went swimming. I threw out my anchor, went down there and got that rattle trap out.
What color trap was it?
It was one of their original ones. It was silver.
Like chrome?
Yeah, chrome.
All chrome? There you go.
All chrome.
I love a blue and chrome.
Then I went out. Then I started thinking, man, if I don't drink so much, I can actually, because I was like 19 years old,
Yeah.
I could actually buy more rattle traps.
There you go.
Because I also had to rent a boat to go out there and out on Lake St. Clair in a 14-foot with a 25 horse. I can't believe I lived as long as I have.
Yeah, wow.
Lake St. Clair
I don't know about that.
Brutal.
I've seen some brutal videos out there, man. I don't know how people do it.
And 20 years later, I was out there in my 20-foot Triton with a 225. And I was scared.
Yeah.
Thinking back, I used to come out here in a 14-foot Lund. And then I went out with a boat that was designed for it, a big old walleye boat. And
yeah.
Scared.
Yeah.
And I probably had 200 rattle traps with me. Oh, the good old days. I caught a lot of fish back then, though.
Yeah, I bet so. It's a good fishery up there.
So you have actually seen a redfish turn over on its back and eat a lure.
I've seen them roll while eating a lure. I have.
That is just incredible. I've also seen them jump out of the water and catch it on the way down. Guys, if you've never caught redfish, I would be careful. Because if you're a fisherman at all, redfish are 100% more addictive than fentanyl. And they can be every bit as destructive.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I like to go down to Grand Isle, fish the pass, and
really
catch bull reds. And
Yeah, let's talk about this for a couple minutes. How are you catching these bullreds?
Rattle traps.
Rattle traps
Rattle traps.
in deep water?
Deep water. Get the biggest rattle trap you can get.
Okay, so you got a 3/4 ounce.
About an
Or do
ounce
they
and a
make
half.
bigger ones now?
They make bigger ones.
See, I have seen big rattle traps, but they make those for muskies.
Yeah, and
Up
they
north.
make saltwater series now.
Saltwater series. Okay, that's what
Yep.
I was missing. Not a whole lot of skeets me as far as the tackle industry, but
Yeah.
I'm not. I just don't know enough about the saltwater industry.
Yeah. But yeah.
Ounce and a half rattle trap.
Big rattle trap. And go out there. I got down scan and side scan on my kayak. You get out there, you mark a big school, and you start chunking it, and they will smash that rattle trap.
So are they on the bottom? Well, are they related to the bottom?
I don't want to say they strictly relate to the bottom because, I mean, you might mark them halfway down the water column. Sometimes they might be higher up in the water column.
So when the water's ripping through Caminada Pass,
mm-hmm.
the redfish don't follow the rules.
No.
Because for the most part, current will pin a fish to the bottom. But also, I'm talking freshwater fish. That's where my bulk of my knowledge is.
Right.
My goodness, I have to learn a whole new set of rules. But an ounce and a half rattle.
Yeah.
So it's going. Your rod's thump, 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 thump. Man, do they smash that thing?
They do. They will about rip the rod out of your hand. And I do this with light tackle too. About a 7'6" heavy rod, bait casting reel. And I mean, you'll be fighting them for a good 15, 20 minutes. But
easily.
Absolute adrenaline rush. And I'm talking 40-inch bull reds too now.
Yeah, of course, 40 inches. Yeah, 40-inch plus.
Yeah.
They get bigger than that.
Yeah, they do.
Not too much anymore. But you know, a big trophy. Now, what time of the year do you target these monsters?
Early part of fall is normally a good time. Late summer, early fall. And this year we caught them late into the year. I'd say to almost November. In November, really. Yeah, we were still catching them out that way. But yeah, normally that fall time is the time you want to target bull reds down in the pass.
Okay. Are they there all year long?
Sometimes they are. They're not going to be schooled up in massive schools like you're going to see normally in the fall, but I'm not going to say you can't catch them year round there.
So Caminada Pass, are you underneath the bridge?
Sometimes, yeah.
Jeez.
Bless
Sorry.
you.
Excuse me. Thank you.
Yep.
Sometimes you're underneath the bridge. Sometimes you're a little bit further out to sea.
Yeah. Sometimes I'll be way out there in the pass. Just depends on where I'm marking them. You know, if I'm following a school that I've marked, sometimes you do end up marking them right there by the bridge, which normally you got to be careful because they'll pull you right into a bridge piling and break you off.
Sure, that happens. If there's anything that can go wrong will go wrong.
Absolutely.
That's just the way it is, and I don't even worry about that anymore.
Can't.
You know, you lose a fish, you lose a fish. Biggest bass I ever hooked into in my life, I lost. Yeah, that was fishing. You might even know him, Zach Dubois.
Yeah,
from Cajun Lures.
Yep, I know Zach.
Pond with Zach, and I was wacky rigging. When I first started the podcast, I didn't have real good equipment.
Mm-hmm.
And I just couldn't hold on to it with the crappy stuff I had back then. I'm not going to name any names because, of course, I don't talk badly about any company on this podcast. So
yeah,
what was it? It was what I could afford at the time.
Hey, all that matters is that you're out there fishing.
Yeah, and I got to feel that thing tug, and Zach caught a 6.5 pounder that day. And on his own lures.
Where were y'all at?
At a private pond over by Kaplan where he lives.
Okay, yeah.
About
I know
10
he
minutes.
likes to. I know he likes to fish Toledo Bend a lot. So
Yeah, his family has a cottage out there.
yeah.
Down here they call them a camp. Where I'm from, we call them cottages.
Okay. That northern slang.
Yeah, it's a thing. So man, throwing rattle traps would be fun because guys, when I throw a rattle trap, I burn it. I don't do anything fancy. Throw it out there and reel it in as fast as I can.
Mm-hmm.
And I have caught a lot. Normally I'm banging on the rocks doing something like, or banging it against trees or some kind. But this is bass fishing I'm talking about. You're just trying to relate to that school, aren't you?
Yep. I'll normally throw it out there, let it sink for, I don't know, a good 6-7 seconds, and just rip it up, let it fall again. It's normally on that fall when they're going to hit.
Okay, so you're following it down on that fall.
Yep.
Are you taking up your spare line when you're?
No. So I'm normally chunking that thing out there as far as I can. Sometimes you'll know even with that little bit of slack when they hit it, because they're going to hit it and run. And
I'm sure they're not like bass. Bass also inhale it. I don't lose many fish with a rattle trap.
yeah.
When a fish takes that, they usually inhale it.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't seem to matter how hard, how fast you're reeling it, what you're doing. They're just, because redfish also have a vacuum mouth where they open it up, and
Yep.
they have to, man. They eat crabs.
Yeah. Whole crabs.
That's what I caught. I caught my first bull red on him at Point of Shane using a half crab.
Yeah.
I couldn't believe it, man. We were using like a 1/0 hook on a half crab.
Oof.
How does that work? But I was with a guide, so he said, "Don't." He said, "Yeah, are you guiding the guide?" No, I'm not guiding the guide. Obviously, you've caught thousands of fish doing this, and thank you.
Right. Yep.
Which is a little bitty hook in this bait. That's that bait looks scary to me because I had just gotten down here. I was working offshore at the time, and
Mm-hmm.
this bait is this big, and his little bitty hook. Okay, you're going to put it right over here. Kind of hide it back there.
I don't know that I could trust a 1/0 hook.
Well, some of the biggest fish I ever caught were on size 4 fish, size 4. And like steelhead, you use little bitty hooks, and
Yeah.
size 12, not 12-aught, size 12, which is
Yeah, a little bitty.
that's these great big steelhead, they're 25, 30 inches long.
Yeah.
So and fly fishermen catch amazing fish with little bitty hooks.
That's true. Yep. They're normally using those real small ones.
But also, like I like to talk about on my podcast, you catch fish on what you have confidence in.
Absolutely. That's the
How do you get
main key
confidence?
right there.
There's no excuse. There's no substitute for time on the water. You can watch a million podcasts. And since I'm a podcaster, I hope people do watch a million podcasts. But the only way you're going to learn anything, you can fine tune things by, hearing Josh Lewis talk about this and go out and try what he says. But, I said, you got to go out and try what he says.
Yeah.
There's no substitute for time on the water.
Absolutely.
I've fished so much. Go ahead, man.
Something that works for me is not going to work for somebody else. They throw it, they don't catch fish, and they don't have any confidence in it. But if it's something that you're catching fish on all the time, that's what you're normally going to go to.
I agree. I couldn't agree with you more. You got to spend time on the water. It's the only way you're going to get good at fishing. It's the only way you can learn anything about fishing. You got to get out there.
Yeah.
As much as I like watching outdoors programming on TV, it's just to fill in the gap.
Yeah. Help help scratch the itch while you can't get out there.
You know, we in southern Louisiana, we've been blessed with such a great fishery. Just it's 80 miles away from where we live. You know, you can't get there from here, but you know, there's no direct route. I find myself driving right through the middle of New Orleans and like 2 o'clock in the morning, you know.
Oh yeah.
I can't tell you how many times I've done that.
Yep.
Well, I wanted to be there by 5. So yeah, you know, you get in your cars, you drive no matter where. You spend much time in Delacroix?
I do not. It's
Wow.
It's a great spot that I just don't spend much time in.
Well, so your favorite place is Terrebonne Parish?
LA1 and Terrebonne are my primary places I'm going to be fishing in the marsh. I fished LA1 majority of my fishing time.
So from Golden Meadow all the way down to Fouchon and Grand Isle?
Even north of Golden Meadow.
Wow.
Yeah.
I found a new place, Catfish Lake. There's a boat ramp right there.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like really deep right there. Last time I went there was full of sharks, though.
Yeah, Catfish Lake's a really popular spot to launch at. You can normally catch some decent trout that way at the right times.
The coldest time of the year, the reds will be in there too.
Yeah. Yeah, and they got some good marsh surrounding Catfish Lake, so some good spots to sight fish also.
Now, have you been catching fish there since Hurricane Ida?
It has not been the same. I will say that.
Because I think I've been down there 4 times since the hurricane, and I've struggled every time.
Yeah, I've had some good days since Ida that way, but it has not been the same. Place I fished a lot was north of Catfish Lake, a launch called Basins Marina. But
okay,
yeah, would launch there. I really like going there because it was about the closest place I could get to from my house. I could normally make it there about an hour, 55 minutes.
Wow.
And
that's moving.
Yeah. But some good marsh there. Right. And I mean, yeah, that's early in the morning, so you got no traffic.
Oh yeah, I like traveling at night.
Yeah. But that place is just destroyed since Ida. So haven't fished there much.
My favorite place to fish is over towards Grand Isle. It's on the side of LA1. I call it the Iron Gate.
Yeah.
It's a big iron gate. And it's one of the few places off the side of the road I pulled. This time of the year, I can consistently pull limits, redfish. And by pulled, I mean, I caught 5, you know.
Yeah.
I didn't take home 5, but I caught 5. And you're right. It was destroyed. You know, it had a wooden under the bridge had a wooden gate on it underneath the bridge. Mm-hmm. So the flow was constricted to one culvert. And I mean, during tide changes, tide flew through there.
Oh,
and of course, that's what you look for. You look for the heaviest current you can. That's what I look for. I look for the heaviest current I can find.
Right. Yeah, that's always a good place to start is where you got some good moving water.
I actually lost a rod there one time, but it was just a cheap burner, you know. Mm-hmm. One of my $35 Walmart specials. Well, I use those for surf casting, you know.
Yeah.
I'm not taking a $300 reel into the surf.
No, absolutely not.
No. So I had one of those and I had just broken off. And I wasn't catching many fish, so I didn't loosen the drag. Put it down on a mangrove. Thunk. Uh-oh.
Gone.
Gone. Yeah.
Gone.
I just laughed. Nothing else you can do. You know?
There really isn't.
Getting angry is not going to make that come back. And if I start having a fit, you know, I could scare any other fish that are around the way.
Oh, yeah.
I did end up catching fish after that, though. Actually, on Cockahole minnows. I'm sure you probably don't use much live bait. But
Almost never. I couldn't tell you the last time I used live bait.
I'm not a fan of shrimp or live shrimp or dead shrimp. I'm just not a fan of it
Yeah.
because every hardhead in the area is going to come,
Oh yeah.
and every little pinfish, every little croaker.
Yep. You're gonna have to pick through a lot of trash fish to before you get to some good ones using live bait like that, especially shrimp.
And the pinfish will eat the stomachs right out of your cockahole minnows. It's brutal down there.
Yep.
And then the crabs go to, oh man, I have spent a lot of money feeding crabs and pinfish. So if I catch one of those pinfish, he goes on the hook.
There you go. He becomes the bait.
Yes. And I have caught, actually, that's what I've caught most of my shark season. And for those guys who don't know, I don't like sharks. They're so hard to take off the hook, and they can turn themselves in a circle, which is something I didn't know.
Mm-hmm.
I grabbed one by the tip of its tail, and that thing in a split second had his mouth around there.
Yep. You catch a shark, you just cut the line.
Yeah, that's what I do now. I don't even care if it's a lure.
Nope. He can have it.
You can have it. I don't want to have to put my hand. I don't want to have my hand put back together.
Nope. I like my fingers.
Yeah. Yeah. I've had enough problems the last couple of years of my health. I don't need sharks adding to it. So Josh, you're going to start a new podcast called Marsh Talk. What else do you do in the fishing industry?
So I'm a tournament director for the Bayou Coast Kayak Fishing Club.
There you go.
We are one of the largest and oldest kayak fishing clubs in the country. So I do that. I do a lot of content creating, like photo, video stuff.
Okay.
Yep. I like to do a lot of that. And it all just kind of stemmed from fishing, my love for fishing.
Do you fish any tournaments yourself?
I do. I fish all our Bayou Coast tournaments. I trying to fish some other stuff like some bass. There's a couple series in the bass kayak world, like
there's a few.
The Hobie Bass Open Series, which is probably the biggest.
Yeah.
Yep. I try to fish a few of those.
I've had Christine Fisher on this podcast a few times.
Have you really?
And she's a star.
She is phenomenal.
But also, that's what she does, man. She travels around the states and fishes. Now she has a boyfriend who does the same thing.
Gee,
kayak fish, and she went over to Sweden or Norway to fish the national.
She fished Hobie World in Sweden last year.
Yes, Christine Fisher, man, she's a star.
She is a leader of the kayak industry. That is for sure.
I also like her because she's just Christine. She's not. Okay, I'm going to say she's not stuck up.
Yeah, no, not at all.
Just she'll talk to anybody. I've heard people who know her. She's very nice.
One thing I have a big respect for, she doesn't feel like she has to sell herself or her body to promote herself. She sells she promotes her skills, and she proves that her skills are enough to get her to the top of the industry. And she's really setting the standard and being a great role model for other women.
She has what I call a grip and grin.
Yeah.
She's fully clothed. And by the way, look at this 7-pound bass I just caught. She told me that she was out on Lake St. Clair. We just talked about that. 5-foot waves in her kayak, and she was catching muskies. Guys in a walleye boat came up to her. Would you like us to take you home? Take you back to wherever, we can throw your kayak in my boat, get you back safe. Oh no, I'm fine. The guys in the 21-foot fiberglass deep V were like, okay, we're going in.
Yeah.
We're scared.
Yep. There's you can find yourself in some sketchy predicaments sometimes in a kayak. Like last year, I fished a Hobie Bass Open on Toledo Bend, and
Okay.
day one of tournament, we had a front roll through, and it got nasty out there. And my buddy, he was fishing main lake, docks around the main lake, and I mean, you got 3-foot rollers coming through, and in a kayak, that's a lot.
Yeah,
And
that is a lot. That's a lot.
he's like, I'm fishing these docks, and he pulled a 9-pounder out in the middle of that.
Well, if you're fishing on the he's probably fishing the windy side of the lake too, which means those 3-footers have a crest on them.
Yeah.
Not an easy thing. I can tell you, I've never fished out of a kayak. I think I'm way too big.
You'd be
some health
surprised.
issues.
You'd be surprised.
I have some health issues too, so
Yeah.
I prefer to be in a bigger boat. Not that I'm against kayaks, of course I'm not. As soon as I get over this, I'm gonna be asking someone to take me kayak fishing.
There you go.
But hey, Josh, would you like to do any shout outs?
Yeah. I'm shout out a couple of my sponsors, Louisiana Custom Kayaks.
There you go.
Leader in the kayak customizing industry. Want to shout out Bill Lewis, GSM Outdoors, Daiwa. Best rod and reels on the market. Love them.
I love my Daiwa reels, man. I just love them.
Yeah, and shout out Bayou Coast Kayak Fishing Club. That'll be
There
it.
you go. There you go, buddy. Hey, Josh, I appreciate you coming on the Let's Talk Fishing podcast. Talk to our listeners here.
Absolutely.
I
really appreciate you inviting me.
Yeah, well, I wish you all the luck in the world getting your podcast started. Like I told you, I'll help you out any way I can.
I appreciate that.
The way I look at it is it's not competition. We all help each other. And through helping each other, we can increase the pot for everybody.
That's right. Let's create a community.
Yes. And this is the kind of community I want. I want a community where people help each other.
Absolutely.
This is a good thing. Like I told the listeners, Josh just lives a couple miles away from me. So
yep, right on the road.
This isn't a very big community here in Watson, Louisiana. So anyways, I was excited to know there's another podcaster local. So I hope to get on the water with you someday.
Absolutely. We'll have to set that up.
Please do, man. Because that's the reason I do this, because I love fishing. But anyways, I'd like to thank all of my listeners here on the Let's Talk Fishing video podcast. The Let's Talk Fishing video podcast, guys, is brought to you by Grant Rods, Crusher Lures, and the American Bass Club. And with that, guys, I know it's just Tuesday, but I want to tell you, start planning your stuff ahead. This is a great time of the year to fish. So get out there on the water, because you only get to do this once.
That's
Please stick around, Josh. I'm going to end the podcast now.
All right.